All right, I will get us going. I think I know everybody, but for those of you that I don't know, my name is Tammy Cades-Lucy. I'm a member of the class of 1981 and the grad class of 82. I have the privilege of serving our alma mater as the alumni director. Before we get going too far, I want to just make sure everybody knows that we're being recorded. All these sessions are being recorded so that if you have other colleagues that are Springfield College alums that couldn't make them and you want to share them with them, they'll be able to do that. Youth in Motion has become one of the many points of pride in what Springfield College does with alumni. It is the brainchild of Dr. Michelle Moosberger, who those of you that have been on before have heard me say wandered into my office, which was in Judd about 7 years ago, and said, I have an idea, it may not be good. 7 years later, we have 35 students on campus as a result of Youth in Motion. So it really was just a great idea. Obviously, right now, we're forced to work with the professional development portion of Youth in Motion, as we obviously can't have high school students coming to campus. But we hope by October, we may be able to return to the original format and embrace high school students coming out to East Campus and having a phenomenal leadership and outdoor adventure opportunity and introduce them to all that is great about Springfield College. So with that, I am very honored that Coach Charlie Sullivan is the speaker for today. And I'm going to turn it over to Drs. Grosha and Moosberger, and they are going to get you going with your professional development program. And just once again, if you can put your contact information into the chat, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. It's so great to see such an amazing group of educators and coaches and future educators and coaches here with us today. Awesome. Thank you to Tammy and Steve for all of their efforts in organizing this professional development series virtually this fall. I'm going to take a step back and describe Youth in Motion as a whole to provide some context, because I think there's some folks in the room who aren't sure what that is maybe, and apologies to Nina who's heard this several times already.
I'm getting all the PDPs though, it's great.
Perfect. So in 2014, we initiated the program with the full name of Youth in Motion, Exploring and Advancing Leadership in Physical Activity and Health. The premise was that some high school students may enjoy sport and physical activity and value health, but may not be aware of career opportunities in those areas. We have recently developed an adventure education undergraduate program, and we were sure that high school students wouldn't have any idea what that was. We thought about influential people in the lives of high school students, and we know the impact of health and physical educators and school counselors. And as Tammy would say, particularly those who attended Springfield College. We recognize that group of alumni worked hard on a daily basis and could always use support and connections with their alma mater. So we identified alumni who serve as health and physical educators and school counselors in a 50-mile radius from the college. Those who are interested were asked to select their high school sophomores and juniors who value health and enjoy sport and physical activity. We then invited the alums to come to East Campus in the fall and main campus in the spring and bring with them their group of identified students. Transportation, coffee of course, and lunch are paid for by Alumni Relations, Admissions, and the School of Pepsel. We provide leadership training and exploration of careers within health and physical activity and sport for the high school students, while also exposing them to Springfield College. For the alums, we offer professional development to support their practice. We know that when the high school students leave campus, they have a trusted adult in the alum who they can seek out for further discussion about career paths in Springfield College. We would love to return to that model of Youth in Motion once it's safe to do so. But for the time being, we'll focus on supporting our alums in a virtual environment. It's great that we can reach alums who are further than 50 miles away and some that are right around in Springfield as well today. So we invite you to think about your experiences at Springfield College and your knowledge of associated career paths and share that with high school students who are in your lives. To help with that, we're going to be sending you, those of you who are in the schools, will send you a package at the completion of this professional development series that'll have materials that you can share with students. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for all that you do. And I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Grosha.
Thank you, Dr. Moosberger. And thank you to everyone for attending what is our 5th of 5 professional development So we are super excited to wrap up today's virtual PD Fridays with Springfield with Coach Charlie Sullivan. So I thought I knew a lot about Coach Sullivan, but digging brought me to this. And holy smokes. Wow. Coach Sullivan, you are amazing. We are super privileged to have you not only teach within the Department of Physical Education and Health Education, but to be able to go and experience and watch you coach. Our students are always very excited and eager to talk about, you know, what you teach them, and in many courses that you are involved in. I think I have a Christmas gift idea for the book that you have authored, and you know, I'm just very excited myself to listen and get goosebumps and take part in your session. So without further ado, the Charlie Sullivan.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for all the support. If you guys are having any trouble with insomnia in any way, that book's really good. Helps you go right to sleep. It's phenomenal. So, that's awesome. But, yeah, so do I have the ability to share my screen? Yes, I do. All right. So, my charge was to talk about positive culture and how to build a positive culture. And this is really cool. These pictures are really cool. This is one of our national championship matches, and it's really great when the balcony starts to get filled up. That's when you know you have a lot of people in there. Fire marshal closes the door. It's only supposed to hold 2,000. We have 2,500 students on campus. We have 3,000 people at a match. That's a good day at the office. But I put this up here first. I do a lot of presentations to businesses on building team culture and how to succeed and get your team to play the best. And this is a slide I always start with. This is our record since 2012. The NCAA started to sponsor our national championship in 2012. Previous to that, it was privately sponsored. And since then, this is our record versus Division III opponents. And the April record is really significant. That's when we play in our postseason. So that's when we're playing the best teams in the country. So we dropped down slightly to a 90% winning percentage in their postseason. But, you know, I always say that this has nothing to do with volleyball. I never even played volleyball myself. So it's not a really volleyball-driven culture. It's a culture that focuses on processes and certain things to be able to enable our guys to play to their potential. And so the culture that I'm going to talk about today, how to build the culture today, I'm going to talk about is really it's really what this is all about. To get our guys to play and perform at their best in the most highly evaluative situations. So I think we had 19 wins last year, and it was a COVID-19 year one. So we were in our last third of our season. We were number one team in the country, and we were hoping to do a similar thing with that group last year. So hopefully we'll get a chance this year. It'd be nice. But creating a culture, positive culture in physical education and any team structure. Just have three things to break the presentation down into today. One is core values, two is feeling or thinking, and three is competition. And I think, you know, culture is a really cliche term that educators and coaches are using a lot today, you know, like culture, mindfulness, grittiness. These are words we're hearing all the time, but to understand how to implement them and understand how they work together, I think is really important. So these three topic areas, you might not be sitting right now at your computer saying like, this is revolutionary, this is unbelievable, core values, like we've all heard of core values before. But I think the strategic implementation of these things and these things working together is really important. And that's what I'll share with you today. In terms of how they work together, like rice and beans is a great meal to get a good protein boost in your diet. However, rice and beans separately don't do much at all. But rice and beans is a compound protein. So this is like compound culture when these things work together, how you implement them and how they're feeding off each other. So I spend my winter breaks at night when all the kids and everyone goes to bed watching movies. It's my decompression for like 2 weeks off winter breaks. And one night after midnight, I'm on the couch, I'm watching this movie, Lone Survivor, and these special ops soldiers in Afghanistan are in the mountains, going over the mountain, just doing a recon mission, going over the mountain and going down the mountain through a ravine. They have a helicopter pickup. At the top of the mountain, they run into a 3-generation family, a grandparent, parent, and kids, teenage boy being in the 3rd generation. And they're having an ethical debate. If they don't, unfortunately, kill these people, that the boy's going to run down and tell the 500 soldiers that they're there and they're going to be 5 versus 500 in a shootout. And so they debate, they go back and forth, and they actually decide to leave the family alone and not kill him. And sure enough, they take 3 steps, and the boy does just what they thought he would do. He runs down the side of the mountain, alerts the soldiers, the enemy soldiers, that they're there, and they're in a fight. They're in 5 versus 500. And I think first of all, the military's structure of team cohesion, task cohesion, working together is like none other. And it's really secretive too. You try to research task cohesiveness and of the military, and it's really hard to find a lot of information on it. But there is no better product for a group of people working together to achieve something than the military model. And so these 5 out of 500 are actually succeeding, and they're getting towards their pickup point. So the last thing they have to do is go down this ravine, and then they go up to this mountain, and the helicopter's going to be right there. They get down the ravine, and they realize only 4 of them, and they realize one of the soldiers is back up top of the ravine, probably in the middle of the enemy fighters. And so they don't even think at that moment they all go back up the hill, up the cliff, and go to make sure that this person isn't left behind. And in my sleepiness at 12:31 in the morning, I say to myself, no way. There's no way I would ever do that. And I thought, am I a bad person? Is that me being selfish? I mean, he's probably hasn't survived this event, and you're going to risk your life and probably die getting that person. But the number one core value of the military is no man or woman left behind. That's a core value. Core values dictate behaviors. So those soldiers didn't make a decision. They weren't going through the debate that I was going through on the couch. They understand the core value. They believe the core value. And through that, they have an action. And it's pretty simple. And this is the point in my career when I was like, oh man, I need to get some of these core values for my team. Like we need to really clear that, make this very clear of what our values are, so our behaviors and actions can be decided. I've been a part of cultures at every level. The pro level, I was with my sabbatical was with the best team in Europe that won the Champions League in Europe. I've been in Olympic cultures. The 2008 Olympic team that won the gold medal for men's volleyball. I was part of that program and watched them build their culture. I was part of the 2016 bronze medal team that built their culture to be able to succeed. Part of college teams, of course, high school youth sports. I've been part of classrooms. I've taught elementary, middle school, and high school physical education. I mean, there's culture is very evident in every environment you walk into. I can drive down the road to our elementary school. The physical education class has been outside a lot because the weather's been nice. And I can just drive by in 5 seconds, have a little sense of the culture. It might be a small window, but I can have a sense of what the culture's like in that classroom environment. Our culture at Springfield College is one that people ask about all the time. In our basketball conference, the men's and women's teams that play basketball at our school, particularly WPI and Clark, those teams will come early because we practice before the basketball team plays. So if the basketball team plays at 7, they warm up at 6, we practice 4 to 6. And WPI and Clark will come early and sit in the bleachers and watch our culture. And then the coach will ask me questions about our culture afterwards. So I think it's, like I said, it's really something that's cliche-ish nowadays, but to do it right and to implement it correctly and have some strategy around it, you can really get some amazing things out of it. So, but these cultures are dictating behaviors. Like we had guys from Puerto Rico on our volleyball team, and in Puerto Rico, the culture is if practice at 5, if you arrive at 5:05 or 5:10, that's cool. In our culture, that wasn't so good. I mean, that wasn't a behavior we really valued. So we had to kind of explain the different value that we have, our core value we have in our program. But this was the moment when I saw this movie, I just couldn't believe those soldiers would go back, probably knowing they're going to die, when the helicopter's right there. And it was just because they believe, they digest, they live their core values so well. So this is Greg Woods on our team. Greg Woods has a 42-inch standing vertical. That's a jump with no approach, no steps. And LeBron James has a 40-inch vertical, standing vertical. So he has a better jump than LeBron James. That's it's pretty high up there. I love the way the ball is being smushed too as he's hitting it, which is really cool. We like Greg Woods. So to develop these core values, you really have to get your students and your athletes to live them. The players and students have to believe them. You have to talk about them all the time. I walk around in my practice with our core values on a piece of paper. And instead of saying to a kid like, a player like, hey, I don't like the way you're doing this, I say, you just need to look at core value number 3 a little bit, examine that, and then come back and see how you can do that a little more effectively. So to talk about it all the time is really important. So I coached a 12-year-old Little League baseball team, and we had some core values that we listed out. We presented on the first practice. And after every practice, we had the dude of the day. And the dude of the day was the player who best exemplified those core values during practice. And so we were just trying to get an opportunity to have those players at the time understand, digest, and live those core values out as much as possible. So they're really important. Every team I consult with, I always want to know what their core values are. Like, what are you striving for? Where are you going? It really changes off-task behavior, especially in a classroom setting. I know there's like policies and expectations and the rules of facilities, and I don't know, those aren't really good selling words for kids nowadays. I mean, as a coach and a teacher, all we are is professional salespeople. And if you really want to sell someone on behaving this way, ask them to follow a policy, a rule, even an expectation. Doesn't sound too inviting. Like to have these core values and to sell them like digesting these core values is more of an exciting route to have them behaving or changing or modifying behaviors to be the best they can be. So I just think you have to word things a little strategically with kids nowadays. And then realize that in your classroom, on your team, that every behavior you see it's like a lack of understanding. They're just doing what they normally do, so they don't understand anything, or it's a really purposeful behavior. So if you have a student or an athlete who's off task, who's not following your core values, they're either doing it because they don't know any differently, they're just kind of in the clouds, or they know, but they're doing the off task behavior for purpose, and there's more to come on that. So that's something to think about with your environment that you're controlling all the time. I would say that coaches and the teachers there's no excuses. Like some coach will say, well, this team just doesn't have it. We just can't score goals. We don't have the heart. We don't have it. That's not the team. That's your environment. And teachers might say the same things. Like, this team is just way off task. They're crazy. They have them after lunch, and it's not the group really. It's the leader. So here are our core values for our men's volleyball team. So we work hard to win every rally that we play in practice and games. As a matter of fact, Coach Simeone was in our practice last year, and he was observing a student at Springfield College who's doing their coaching practicum, and they were with our team, so we had to come observe them. And we have these boxes we build. They're like 4 feet high, 4 feet wide. They're made of wood, and we can push them into the court. We can stand on them and hit volleyballs. It's for short coaches, it really helps a lot to stand on a box, hit a volleyball. And so we push the boxes off to the next court when we're playing a 6v6 game in the middle court. And Coach Sims watched practice. One of the balls went errantly to the side off the court, and one of our players was running to get the ball. The box was in the way, and he didn't have a chance to go left or right. He went right through the box. Like, I thought he broke his leg for a second, kind of like Matt's back flip in class. Had a moment of, oh man. And he didn't get hurt. He got the ball, they played the ball back, and they won the rally. And Coach Simeone, he had trouble observing the rest of practice for this practicum student. He was saying, your kid ran through a box. I was like, I know, I thought he hurt himself. He's like, he ran through the box. He said it like 100 times. I was like, I know, that's our culture. We work hard to win every rally. As a matter of fact, some coaches, they watch our team and they say, you guys really work hard to win every rally. I see your guys trying to win every rally. And I think that's like the best compliment we can receive, because that's our number one core value. So they're seeing that value work out in our actions. So our actions have to enhance team cohesion. They get written up in the dorms, have behavior problems. That doesn't help our team cohesion. We have a philosophy of humanics at Springfield College, which we're all aware of. If you treat people with respect and how you treat people, you lose the opportunity to get into a lot of situations that are that are not welcoming. So we build relationships by communicating and listening. We have a learning mindset. We're process oriented. We don't really talk about winning a volleyball game ever. We compete every day, making yourself others better, and we stay connected to the fundamentals are things you're working on for that day. So these are our core values, and they haven't really changed over the last 5 or 6 years since I saw this movie. But we have them up in the locker room. We have them in the gym. I have them on me. I can have easily anytime during our practice, our guys can be referred to our core values to make sure they understand them if they're a little off task. We had a bunch of freshmen in this year, first year guys. And we only were doing practice with 4 players at a time. We did like 4 practices during the day, 5 practices during the day. And just having these 4 were 4 first year guys. And they were playing volleyball like they were in the clouds. They didn't understand. So we had to say, whoa. I don't think you guys understand what's going on here. Look at these core values like number 1, number 3, number 6. These all need to be a little better. So let's make sure you understand these, and then we can play volleyball a little differently here. So it was a good learning moment for our first year guys. These are those core values I was telling you about when I coached my son's 12-year-old youth baseball team. The year before the baseball team, by the way, was like 3-30, and my son was on the team. I had to watch the practices and watch this brutal approach to athletics and culture. And then next year we were 35-3, and we won 3 out of the 4 tournaments we entered. So we all started with these core values that work hard and play your potential every pitch, similar to our volleyball one. And here's baseball in a nutshell, especially for a 12-year-old. Keep a positive attitude about your ability, especially when you experience failure. Example, strikeouts, errors, walks. No one's perfect. That's what being a good baseball player is about. I don't know if we have any baseball or softball people on the team, but if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're doing pretty good at the plate. So there's a lot more failure than success in baseball. So we wanted our players to understand failure and look at it as a learning opportunity. And sometimes we would go like this. We'd ask them to push reset on their head like they would use a reset button on their computer. So just wash it away. Let's get to the next one. Communicate positively with your teammates, verbal and body language. With one player in particular who, I don't know if it was a core values of his family not to be able to talk really well or growl at people and snarl at people, but we often had him referred to core value number 3 as he was going through practice with some negative body language. Focus on fundamentals coach are sharing with you, and focus on playing your best inning. And do not talk about winning or losing a game. So in the dugout, when we're at bat, all the kids are talking about we're going to win, we're going to lose, and that was a violation of core value number 5 on that team. So we had these, I brought poster board, the neon and orange poster board, the stables, and we had them in the dugout every practice, every game. We had the due to the day. Like I said, this needs to be something that the players have a chance to digest at every possible opportunity. And I think the other thing about core values that a lot of people don't do is define, like, when we do these core values, this is what the action looks like. This is what we call our action plan. And so that first season, I introduced core values to our guys. I don't know how much our guys were buying it until about a month later. Like, I was doing all those things we're talking about, like selling them and talking about them and highlighting behaviors that were exemplifying our core values. But we were at a game, we were playing Riviera in New Hampshire, and we were up 2-0, and we were up in the 3rd game big. We hadn't called a timeout all match. We were playing awesome. And I had these in my bag. I have our core values and our action plan in our bag. And the timeout's like a minute, 90 seconds or something like that. So I waited till the end of the timeout, and I pulled the paper out of my bag, and I just went in the timeout and I held it up. I said, tell me what of these 5 things isn't happening exactly as it's written right now. And we were really fast. We were really dominant. We were efficient. We know our statistics. So what a statistic is, like, if we achieve this number, we're going to win. We're communicating great, our body language, our mouth and eyes. We were really fundamentally sound. We looked like a machine the way we were performing the skills. And then there's an amount of belief in every performance and every gym and every classroom. And we want to take all the belief all the time. So we were believing we were going to play better the whole time as well. So at that point, when they looked at that list, we said, what of these 5 things aren't really happening? Like, which one of these 5 isn't 100% accurate right now? That's when I think they really bought in. And that's when they really started to digest our core values. And now it's compounding again in terms of it's just becoming a norm in our program for a kid to run through a box in practice, because they want to act out those core values because they know that this is what's going to happen. And when that's happening in a game, that's really fun. So the second part of building your culture has to do with what you guys think. So what's more important for a great performance for your students and players? How your students players think, or how your students players feel? So I was going to go to the chat for this. So So if you guys want to put your responses in there, what you think is more important for a great performance from your students, players, how they think or how they feel. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Chat box is open. We got some feelers. Feel. Another feel. Personally, both, but think. Emily, thank you. Think leads to how they feel. Nina, thank you. That's funny, Nina, because I remember you at Springfield and you were always smiling. It looked like you always felt great. Maybe you were thinking really well. So this is a debate. I teach sports psychology. Nina got to think as well. All right, so we're like 4-3. We're like 60-40 here, which is pretty cool. So as a sports psychology teacher at Springfield College, this is all sports psychologists, because they want to really, we're about 50-50 right now, which is cool. They want to, like, you know, value their professional would say thinking is more important than feeling. It wouldn't even be a debate. But I don't have a sports psychology degree, even though I teach sports psychology. Maybe I shouldn't tell my boss this right now. You know, I teach sports psych at Springfield College. I don't have a degree in sports psych. And also, this is usually heavily responded, think over feel. As we think, maybe it can't come back at, maybe to take a small lead here at the end. But we're talking to mostly Springfield College people, so I think we have a little bit of different crowd here today. But let's do this then. I'm going to show you a vid. And hold on a second. Maybe I'll show you a vid. Let's say with this video, let's see which team you think is playing better. And if they're playing better because of what they're feeling or what they're thinking. If they're playing better, is it what team? So pick a team who's playing better. And then why do you think they're playing better? Because of how they're thinking or how they're feeling. And we'll go. Can you guys all see? Can you see, Michelle? Can you see the screen, the video?
It hasn't started sharing yet.
Yeah,
All right, hold on a second.
I think it's my computer is slow, maybe.
No, my screen said it wasn't. Try again. How about now?
Yes.
All right, so which team's playing better? And is it because what they're thinking and what they're feeling? There we go. White or maroon? Tough answer for Springfield guys. So we're both two maroon teams here. This is a good one here. Pull it back. Ooh. All right. What we got? What, do you want to put this in the chat? Or you feel okay talking? I don't know. You guys are maybe a little older.
I thought white.
You thought white. Very good. Why'd you think that, Jim?
Probably because they felt good.
Yeah. Well, it might have been.
No, they were very every point they're putting their hands up. I think a couple times they put their hands up even though they lost the point.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So that's very true. Yeah, for sure. Anyone else? Thank you, Jim.
White, because they were feeling.
How can
They
you
were
tell?
in the.
What were they feeling, Steve?
I guess I'm gonna go with like that moment of like flow where things are just rolling and you feel really good. And from my own experience, I often feel like I'm not even thinking. I'm not even like my mind's not getting in the way.
Yeah.
So
There's no analysis to paralysis for sure. So let's see some of these people who put thinking's more important. I want to hear what you have to say. Is that Nina? I'm calling on you, Nina.
Okay. So feels like the white team was, playing out every point. They had great energy, and they probably had a thought process behind where to be, how to do it, and that leads to them feeling good and being successful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If we're going to analyze.
Yeah, let's do it. So you're right about the white team. It's a highlight video of our transition plays in our national championship. And we were wearing the white uniforms because the higher seed wears the home uniforms. So this is a really interesting match. This is the national championship. This is the number one. We're the number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed in the national championship. And so both teams had done what they needed to do. We were clearly the best 2 teams in the country all year. And then this match lasted 60 minutes. With the third set, we won 25-9, the equivalent of like 17-1 in a softball game. And this is the match that really made it clear to me that what they're feeling was more important than what they're thinking. And that's not saying Nina is incorrect. They went through a thought process to get there. They had highly evaluative situations all year as in their preparing for this match. But at this time, when they were in the most really kind of a crucial or highly evaluative situation of the season, we were really feeling great. If you notice, this is one of my favorite plays when he pulls it back here. Because the reaction, it's a really hard thing to do. For this guy to pull it back like this and get a really clean swing and set and bang it that hard, our bench really knows it's an amazing thing. So we just multiplied on how we felt all the time, which was cool. I think in the next rally, we get such a nice play. Our number 5 guy on the bench feels so good. He has to come to the middle of the court. Right in the middle of the court. He's feeling amazing. And I'll show you one more rally, which is pretty impressive. Because this guy, Sean, hits the ball right here, where if you can see my cursor. Ball's going to travel right to where my cursor is. And Sean is not thinking about anything with this feeling of just playing at his best and playing with his ultimate intensity, has the ability to receive this ball like 35, 40 feet away. And that's our number 1 core value. We've done that. That's the kid running through the box in practice. So we've done that in practice. We've thought about it in practice. But now, as to maybe what Steve's saying also, to avoid an analysis paralysis situation, thinking too much, we're just letting it all hang out there and feeling. And I think for me, when you pull off a great class, when your students are in a great class, your players pull off a great performance, the thing that they're feeling is joy. And I don't think you get to a point of joy unless you've gone through a great process. So those teams who don't feel joy when they perform, they're kind of reflecting back on their process, maybe not being complete. And it's really hard to feel joy when you haven't done everything really perfectly. So I think what our guys are feeling here is absolute joy. And as we started to feel it more, the other team starts to feel it more too. And we just take away opportunities for them to play at their potential because we're playing better than they are. So my point is with the scenario in terms of building your culture, get back to the PowerPoint here, is this. Oh, sorry. Here. Good. So it's all about, like, I think you need to coach and teach through an athlete's heart first. And that's more of a feel process than a thought process. You guys see the screen okay? Good. So a teacher or coach can't teach a student player until that student player knows the teacher cares about them. And so this is like I said, this isn't like anything that's really crazily revolutionary, but with these, when you have core values that are really specifically defined and you start coaching and teaching your players through their heart, they know they care about you. That's the time you can really start to build a relationship and really start to teach someone and really kind of get behaviors to be towards what their potential is. We're finding as this kind of skill set of building relationships in our program, how valuable it is. We defined this a while ago, 3 or 4 years ago. What's it like to build a relationship? We find it's the same thing for making efforts to eliminate discrimination, especially on our campus as we're working really hard at Springfield College. So being empathetic, having a perspective, not judging, listening and communicating. Those are skills for building relationships, and those are also skills for eliminating disparities in social justice and eliminating discrimination. So as we're going through this time, Black Lives Matters and everything we're doing on campus to be a better community and more humanic, we're finding that our skill set of building relationships is already existence in what we need to do to be successful there. So this is really important for you as a teacher coach to be building relationships all the time. So my wife is a 7th grade English teacher, and she's unbelievable about what she gives to her students in terms of care. We had to go last weekend into Hartford because one of our students, their bed broke and they couldn't sleep on their bed. They had a couch. So we got a bed from our neighbors and we brought the bed to the apartment. At this point of their relationship between my wife and that student, that's when my wife grades her paper and says, rewrite the whole thing with a bunch of red ink on the paper. That student says, okay, because she knows that that student really knows my wife cares about her. And so it's a really amazing way to teach and coach, especially when you have some great core values lined up. So there's, especially in today's, everything we're dealing with COVID, anytime there's a huge gap between the desired reality and the reality that's serving up at the time, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty and tough feelings that are coming across everybody. So all I'm doing with my students this semester is supporting them first. I know we've had, our departments debated often back and forth about, I guess, grade, just spiking up grades and not being grade conscious, and what's a good GPA and what do you need to have GPA-wise to matriculate in our program. But I think that product analysis, product evaluation is really significant right now with these students that we're dealing with. I think it's more significant especially when they're having this huge gap in terms of what the effort they're putting into the reality and the desire they have for the reality and the reality that they're experiencing. It's really hard for them. So to really coach and teach through the heart right now is really important. And it's also, there's also something different about, I talked to my athletes on my team. I asked them for situations and give me a scenario where you were doing something that was really hard and it was a task and you didn't know if you were going to complete it. And then when you were uncertain if it was going to be successful or not, when you ended up being successful, what was it like? And my kids don't even have a lot of good concrete examples of that scenario. And so, especially when, like I say, we can't use hard work as a sell for our students. These guys maybe haven't, some of them, fortunately, or unfortunately, haven't gone through a hard experience. And then we're experiencing what we're experiencing now, which is really unusual. It's a really good time to teach and coach through the heart. So Karch Cry was voted by the Federation of International Volleyball as the best volleyball player of all time. So he became our women's national team coach, and our women's national team players were telling a story how excited they were to have the best player in the history of the sport as their coach. But they were all fascinated at the first meeting because Karch didn't tell them anything. He just kept on asking them, how can I help you? What can I do for you to make you better? And he was saying that's something he never got when he was a player. And that's what the most important thing he wanted to supply to his players on his team, the national team, was how he can help them better. And so I think that went a long way. Like, here's the best player in the world, not giving a crap about their passing or their serving or their blocking, but only caring about how they're feeling. And Grosh and I, we've talked about students before in the phys ed program that are on my team. And we were trying to figure out why that player was having those behaviors. They're very purposeful, or there's just a lack of understanding. And Grosh, I can tell you right now, if you have known what I know about these students we're talking about, like what they've gone through, you would understand their behaviors, and we would understand how to connect with their heart more, and we would be able to teach them and coach them at a higher level. And so it's just really getting to know your players and then supporting them. But what you have to take advantage of opportunities to support your players like this. Like, for example, we had a guy from Hong Kong on our team last year, and he was really distraught because his friends were at the university in Hong Kong where the riots were happening, and his family was in danger all the time. He was really worried about home. And so he would stay up all night and watch news reports, and that's the time difference. So he'd call me and be like, Coach, I can't come to practice. I'm exhausted. I haven't slept all night. I haven't slept for all week. And I kept on saying, what can we do to help you? And he said, eventually, the best thing you can do to help me is to understand. And I said, why don't you give our team a presentation for 15 minutes of what's going on, the history of the situation, so we can understand better. And he would check in with our team like once a week and give us a presentation on everything that's happening in the current events in Hong Kong. And just after that, the way he looked like the video. He felt so much better. And at that moment, he was like, maybe I should really listen to these core values. Maybe I can do these things. So it just helps the buy-in from the players if you are thinking about them first and coaching through the heart. Our players from Puerto Rico, our guys, we had the West Side Story, 8 from California, 8 from Puerto Rico. California and Puerto Rico in every level of national championships for club volleyball the finals, the team from PR and first team from Cali. And so they're bitter rivals. We took half our team, half from Cali, half from Puerto Rico, and put them together. And we had like random guy from Jersey and Virginia or something like that. But we were really, it was an interesting year for cohesion. But our guys from California, like, coach, we go to dinner after practice with the guys from Puerto Rico, and all they do is talk in Spanish. We can understand them. How are we supposed to build relationships? You said listening, communicating is really important. I said to the guy, that must be really hard for you. I said, okay, let me think about that one. So I brought in, we had a graduate student from Puerto Rico in the physical education department, Jose. He's getting his doctorate, and I asked him to come to practice. He played volleyball too in Puerto Rico, which was great, so I understood volleyball. And I explained every drill, how it's scored, how it works. And I said, can you please give the whole practice in Spanish? Like, don't say a word of English. So he came up, I said, guys, this is Jose. He's from Puerto Rico. He's going to present practice today. He knows how the drills work. He's competing. Remember, we don't know who's starting on Friday, so please be aware we're really evaluating your performance today. And he went through and gave the whole practice in Spanish. So our guys in California are like, what the? And our guys in California were pretty, they were thrown, they were triggered a little bit. Our Puerto Rican guys were ecstatic. They go through a history lecture all day. They go through class all day. They come to volleyball practice and listen to this crazy, fast-speaking mumbler from New Jersey talk about these crazy things. And then they go to the cafeteria and they want to hang out. But they were ecstatic. And then after the practice, our guys are from California. We're like, okay, I get it. I was like, you understand now why when they go to the cafeteria, they just want to feel like they're at home a little bit. They just want to feel a little more comfortable. So if you give them that time to talk to each other in Spanish, that I think they would appreciate that and you would understand each other a little better. So that's perspective, empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, relationship building. So I mean, our guys from Puerto Rico, I think they understood that we had their heart at that point, which was really important. So just a couple of examples there. But do something to help the students, prove to them you care. It really helps your culture. And now you can teach. And now you're going to know those behaviors that are either because they don't understand or purposeful, that they're going to have really purposeful behaviors towards, they're going to buy in and follow those core values. They're going to be like those soldiers, not even hesitating, but just going. So competition, our program really thrives on competition. When like Jim, if you're a GA, came to my office and said, coach, Jim, how do you do it? How do you guys win all the time? I said, this is the number one thing I show. And so Javier Rosario was a player on our team. He was a junior. We won a national championship. He was a first team All-American that year. And he was on the all-tournament team of the national championship. So he had a pretty good year. You might go away for the summer thinking, hey, I'm pretty much a lock to start my senior year with everything that's happened in my junior year. But our positions are always up for grabs. They're always resale positions every year. And this kid came in, Brandon Mueller, and he beat out Javier Rosario. And so Javier Rosario had a choice to make. He can go back and complain and whine, or he can really get into the process of what do I need to do to improve? How can I get my game better? And learn how to compete a little more for that starting position. So we do a competitive culture all the time. I'm going to show you what we do in practice here. I'll share a new screen with you. So this is our competitive culture that we do in volleyball practice all the time. So the far left column are the players' uniform numbers, and every double line separates a position. So these players, number 3, number 5, number 7, number 10, number 17, are the outside hitters. Only 2 of them play at a time. And so these other columns are all the things that we compete with during practice. So the first thing we compete with is GPA. So if it's second semester, we're going to take the player's GPA from last semester, and that's going to be part of our competition in practice. Like, for example, number 3 might have finished with the highest GPA. Number 5 might have had the 5th. 7 might have had the 4th. And then 10, the second highest GPA, and 17, the third highest GPA. That finish goes over and accumulates in their total column. And the player with the lowest number that day is the best player in the position statistically. So this player, number 17, finished at 17.5, so he was the number 1 player in that position. But all these things we're competing in at every practice, we're statting every practice, and the guys are getting an email every night what their stats were for practice, and they know if those stats are towards the level we need to we set as a goal to perform well, and they know also how they compare it to the other players in their position. So this will say they're serving. These are 2 competitions we're doing serving, and I'll say who was the best that day at serving. So 5 was the best at serving that day. Hitting percentage, kill percentage is all attack statistics, but these really vary. Number 3 finished first in hitting percentage, and 7 finished first in kill percentage, and hitting efficiency, 17 finished first. So, But so those are attacking and passing, plus minus, how many points you scored, how many errors you had, and then wins and losses is really important in 6v6. If you get a win, like you're on that 6v6 team that won, you get a first place finish. And if you're on the 6v6 team that lost, you get a second place finish. And those all go up to the total here column. So this is like a cauldron's like a big kettle a witch brews up a magical potion in. And this cauldron is really what makes our practices really important. It kind of spices them up a little bit. So 6v6 could take 45 minutes, and that's going to be a 1 or a 2. And 6v6 is a multiplier that counts twice. Oops, sorry there. And GPA counts half. All these other ones count at a value of 1 towards their total column here. So this happened. We had a 2-week period with no competition at one point in my career, and it was in the spring. The spring is really rough. In April, when everyone's throwing a frisbee around on the green of Abbey, our guys have to walk by that in 80-degree weather and come in the gym at 4 o'clock. So we have to kind of like think of how we're going to get them excited about that. And so we developed this cauldron. We had a really weird break in the schedule. It was really never really happened. We had 2 weeks in April without a game. And so we said, I don't care who you are, what you're a starter now, you're an All-American, doesn't matter, because we're just going to play the cauldron out for 2 weeks. And then we're going to just take the top people in those positions, and you're going to be the starters. So it gave us the people who had never played a shot at the title, which was really cool. And it really increases the motivation and practice to perform at your best. And that's what we want. We want this culture thing is how we're going to get our best behavior, our most powerful, our behavior that it shows our potential. So we just want our guys to play our potential all the time. This is a heavy product that we throw to our guys. And this 6v6 is like 30, 45 minutes. And the last swing decided on the second to last day, the Thursday and Friday before the Saturday match. That last swing decided who was going to be the starting opposite. It was a really close race. And it sounded just like a match. It was like a swing that terminated the drill that would determine a winner and loser. And there were cheers like winners cheers in a volleyball match. And there was kind of depressing sighs like losers or the losers of a competition would do after a match. So, but Javi went back into this cauldron, and Javi was terrible at this when he was a freshman. I'm miserable. We would say competitive cauldron day, and Javi's eyes would pop out of his head because players have a tough time handling it sometimes. If they have an error, they realize it's going to really affect their position in the cauldron. They're going to lose this battle here. So they have to really, all it is a huge distraction because we're a process-oriented team, like you can see from our core value number 5. But it takes a product and it shoves it right in their face, and it says, don't look at it. Don't pay attention to that. Don't do that. Don't think like that. Think about your process, right? Your effort, your attitude, letting errors go, being your best self, being in the present moment. And so Javi went into the cauldron that year, and he really worked hard. He came before practice, got extra reps. I would come to school early and pass with him, and he was just got better and better. He got better at his career, during his career, at competing in this cauldron environment in practice as well. So we weren't playing well at the end of the season, and Javi came in and we played a lot better. And then we weren't playing well in the quarterfinal national championship, and Javi came in and we played better. And then in the semifinal, same thing. We just were sputtering a little bit, not firing on all cylinders, and Javi came and we played better. And the first match Javier started of his senior year was the national championship final. And here's what it looks like when you work all year at getting process-oriented in the cauldron. So Javi's over here in the white shirt. This was another, I think we won in like 60 minutes versus Vassar in the national championship. And this is what you do when you work so hard at something all year. This is how you celebrate. The best part about the video is that all of our actions enhance team cohesion, one of our values, is that the reaction from everybody else. Like on the floor, everyone's really excited. The first guy up the bench with the high knee kicks is the guy who it was the first match of the season he hadn't started, is Brandon Mueller. And the reaction of the bench, because everyone knows what Javi did. Javi did the right thing, wasn't product oriented, didn't worry about winning and losing, just did whatever the team needed. And everyone knows that's the moment that he's celebrating all the hard work he had and put forth through the season. So show it one more time. Pretty nice spike. There it is. And your lats grow really big when you do something well. You can't put your arms down. It's really weird. It's a volleyball thing. You can just walk around a little more with your arms out. Because your lats get really big. Jim might know about that being a wrestling coach. I don't know anything about that, but your lats just blow up all of a sudden. So these are the stats our guys get every night after practice. They can also get some video in the room of their performance in practice, but it shows their attacking, their back row attacking, their serving, their reception. The next page, I can't get on how to get on this thing, but it also shows their plus minus contributions to practice, and it shows how many points they scored in practice. So we're doing those things all the time in practice. Let me get back to the PowerPoint.
Coach Sullivan.
Yep.
So I noticed that one of the core values is to like never talk about winning, never talk about losing. But then with your team, you have that cauldron, and you talk about how it comes down, often can come down to one swing, the last practice, etc.
Yep.
So is talking about it different than thinking about it?
No.
So in other words, what I'm wondering is, you know, the kids that are going through the 2-week cauldron, I mean, isn't that all they're thinking about?
No.
And it's not.
No, that's the irony of it, Steve. We're actually making it really difficult for them to think about the process, like to think about just some execution, like a knowledge and performance type feedback, or their attitude, or their effort, or if they're having trouble. One of the things we tell our guys all the time: if you're having trouble with your performance, then help someone else. Just get out of yourself a little bit. Be humanic towards that guy next to you and see what happens. But if they're thinking about it, or what was your other thing? Thinking or feeling about it, or just really focus on that, it's going to really hurt their performance, because all they're thinking about is winning, and they're thinking about the product. So we actually want to make it difficult for them to think about the right thing, to think about the process, by jamming this product right in their face. Saying, I just put it right here. Don't look at my hand. Don't think about my hand. Don't do it. And it makes it really hard for them. And I think that's why when we get into big moments in a big match, that we've really prepared by not letting have that anxiety of the moment overtake us and debilitate our performance. But we're really prepared for that situation because we've done it so many times in practice. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's talk. I want to hear from our physical education teachers, even like our future physical education teachers. How can you describe the best class you've ever seen?
Well, actually, I have a quick question for you about how with the GPA. Does it determine like by your major? Because like, what if you have a kid that is in, physical education versus a kid that is in like physical therapy? That major is like twice as hard because there's more things that they have to do. Does that define their GPA in your eyes, or that doesn't really matter?
So now you're sounding like a player who's taken the validity and reliability of the cauldron and attacking it. So I appreciate that. You're very competitive. Who is this? I can't see the screen. So I can you play for us next year? We need a survey.
I wish. I coach high school. So that was my second question was how would you take that, like your the cauldron, and kind of turn it into something for like high school students to get them to be like more active. Like for example, I assist on varsity and we have 23 kids, so that's 11 and 11, or sorry, that's 22, but it's 11 and 11, so you always have that somebody in the back of your mind. How do you determine which one? How would you gear that towards high school kids, I guess? Yeah, so
with the validity and reliability of the details, the variables of the cauldron, those are all things that there's going to be, it's really hard to match up equally, but you just do your best. And then you explain to the kid, like, I wouldn't differentiate between majors. No. So you chose physical therapy. That's what you're good at. You should be, everyone's responsible for being, doing their best in the classroom in our program. So it's just a little in there is a little reminder, like, hey, go to class, do your work, don't procrastinate, and be a good student, represent us well on campus. But in terms of, you can set up any way you want to. And that's what I'm about to say here too. Like, you can set up in a classroom scene too. Because I think the best classes you've ever seen have been really productive. The kids have been behaving like performing really well, and they're actually doing something to be the best class. And that's why I don't know. At first, I was like, I don't know if competition really falls into a physical education setting, but I think it does, because they're competing to be the best physical education class possible. And I think you guys might have some examples of some great classes or some great teachers that have just produce some great results with their kids year in and year out. And I think that's because in their culture, they have this competition. But for high school sports specifically, there might be some things that are more important to you, like just getting to practice on time, you are 1 or 2. You could even throw some subjective evaluations in there. Like you might not agree, but your story told me today that you didn't communicate well. You walked around with your head down and you didn't say anything. You didn't say you were in a bad mood, but your story told me you were in a bad mood. And I evaluated you as having a lower rating in that category today. So you can throw some subjective columns into your cauldron. So, but it's what those stats for us are those really contribute. They directly correlate to plus and minus differentials in point scoring in volleyball. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem. And if you read Anson Durant's the women's soccer coach in North Carolina, women's soccer, and he's won like 23 national championships. He started a cauldron there because he felt he had to teach his players who were female, who tend not to be very egotistically orientated, to beat their friends and then not feel bad about it. And not only not feel bad about it, but beat them a little more. And then when they're beating them a little more, beat them a little more. So he made everything competitive, and he really wanted his kids to compete at everything they did. And he would coin that as one of his reasons for the massive amount of success he's had down there. And that's what his culture thrives on too. So I think if any culture is going to be at a high level in class or with a team, there's got to be competition in there. There could be deliberate goals of competition in class settings, like we're gonna play with these bean bags, and if we have successful, if you and your partner can have 50% success, then that's gonna be a goal, a win for our class today. I observed Mountain View Elementary School physical education classes when I first came to Springfield College with Mr. Jascalian, and he had a record for the class that got in the class, lined up and ready for warm up quicker than anyone else. It's small, it's subtle, but it's a competition. I say to my sports psych class every semester, this is going to be, you can tell your teachers, I tell my students, that the best class of your semester is sports psych, because everyone on campus knows it's the best class on campus. Like what we do in this classroom is so much different than other classes. So all the faculty knows, don't feel bad about saying sports psych is the best class you have, because it's just common knowledge that we do things better in sports psych than other classes do. So it's just a joke to get the tone out that we're not just doing something to see how it happens. We're not just reacting to the environment. We're going to create an environment that's really competitive and really strives to be the best. And so I think when you refer back to the best classes you've ever seen, like these kids are fired up about doing something special. And if they're having some testing opportunity, some national standard, that they're pretty gung-ho about getting it. So I didn't know really how, when I was thinking about this today and talking to y'all, I didn't know how it was going to fit in, but I think competition is the key to the best class you've ever seen. That they have some competitive variable in there that they're striving for. So the best teams you've ever seen, UConn women's basketball and New England, the Patriots. I mean, dynasties, maybe older, my generation, people on the call grew up seeing the 49ers be really dominant. It was their culture was really special. They had really special core values they all strove for. I think they were playing with joy, and they had competition. It was a really competitive environment. So I think this can be, you have to, if we're looking at three things that compound positive culture, we have to include competition in there, even though we don't think of a physical education setting as competitive, but we have to be, in order for us to get these behaviors so our kids can perform at their potential. And really, if you look up the Latin root word of competition, it means there's two words in there, striving together. So if Steve and I are competing for the outside hitter position, like number 5, number 17 were, I'm not making the other guy worse. I'm not beating you down. I'm getting better. And if you're competing with me, you're getting better too. The 2008 Olympics gave Clay Stanley the best opposite in the world. He's a 7-foot guy. I once flew to China, Japan with Clay, and I was at the window seat. He was on the aisle seat. The middle seat was empty, but his knee was right here the whole time. This 7-foot guy is trying to fly for 22 hours. It was, oh my God, I felt so bad. So, but really, he was the best opposite in the world, best server in the world, best attacker in the world at his position. But the other tools of the position, blocking, defense, he wasn't so good at. And this guy came out of Stanford the summer before the Olympics. We were playing some competitive matches and playing lights out, comparably to Clay attacking-wise. Not as good as Clay serving-wise, but much better blocking D. So we had 3 of the 4 tools he beat Clay out in. And Clay had a choice, and we would be in France and Nice, and he would stay after the match and get extra work on his block and D. And he did the same thing as Javi. He just went back and evaluated what he could do to be better. And he got some chances in that World League competition before the Olympics, Paralympics, and won his position back. And goes into the 2008 Olympics in Beijing and is the MVP of the Olympics. And we don't win a gold medal without Clay playing at the level he did. And it never would happen if he had not been striving together with Gabe Gardner, who came out of nowhere and surprised the whole program about competing with Clay that summer. So that competition is really key for us to win a gold medal in 2008 Olympics. But yeah, so winning is not the focus of winning. We never talk about winning or losing a volleyball game in our program. We go over the goals the first day, and now we have a virtual fireplace. But yeah, we have to do this in our region. We have to get this ranking. We have to qualify for the national championship. This needs to happen. This is the fact. But then we take those products ideas or product results and we just throw them in the virtual fireplace. So we never talk about them again. We get all into the process, like what we're doing on our focus, what we're doing on our effort, what we're doing attitude, what we're doing on our execution, what we're doing fundamentally. We only strive to play at championship level of volleyball in every practice and every match we play. And that's part of our culture. That's what we're competing for all the time. And being process orientated, like that's the irony with that Steve were referring to before with Javier. He didn't compete with anyone else on the team to be able to start that last match of the year. His only match he started his senior year, he competed with himself. And to have a process-oriented orientation versus a product orientation is really a good deal for your kids because they can just focus on all the things that they can control. They can control, you know, our organization, our focus, our effort, our behaviors, our relationship, our teamwork. All those things are controllable. And you can win anything, any match, any day of the week you can win if you do a good job of those. You know, we can't control the product all the time. Can't control a referee's call. If you're an outdoor sport, you can't control the weather. A field hockey team can't control you play on turf all year. This time you're playing on grass. You know, you can hit the post 5 times. You can't control that. A centimeter to the right, you would have scored 5 goals. So you can't control these products. You have no control of them, but you can control the process. And to have that skill set take place through competing is really the best way to get there. Very ironic. So compete with your core values. It's good for the students' mental health. Like they always can walk away with a W if they're really focused on the things they can control. So, and that's what we're doing a lot of stuff now with is mindfulness trainings during this COVID time. You know, being the present and evaluating your thoughts and feelings right now, and knowing our core values. You have some personal values you're striving for as a person too. We even use core values in our household. Like that's not very good. That's not nice. Gets nice is one of our core values. And when you treat your sister like that, that's not really nice, and you're not getting nice back. So, but personal values, what you're striving for. I strive to be an energetic, serving, kind, respectful, strategic, achieving type person. If I'm having a thought or a feeling that's not on that list, and I'm not going to act on that thought or feeling, I'm going to act on my list instead. So being mindful and being in the present helps you evaluate those thoughts. And we're teaching our guys this a lot in our culture right now. And like I said, when there's a gap between desired reality and reality, there's a large gap. There's a bombardment of negative thoughts and feelings. And that's what a lot of people are experiencing right now. And present training, evaluating thoughts and not reacting to negative thoughts, instead choosing actions that match our values is a really important part of our culture. And I think it's helping us with everything that's going on when we lost our season and when we weren't able to practice this year after we went remote. I think it's helping us just kind of be at our best too, which is really nice. So it just goes back with a process orientation, competing with your actions and matching your values, and it's your control, and you can win all the time doing those, which is really the best case scenario. So building a positive culture, define your culture with core values, and I have weekly themes for that. The 2008 team and the Olympic gold medal team in 2008 used a book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni that they shaped their culture around that. Boys in the Boat was a book that our 2016 men's volleyball team used to shape to depict and teach their culture, have the players hear about the culture more and digest it and learn it. Weekly themes to help with your culture, like this is a theme of, you know, serving others. So in class, we really need to be really mindful and help your peers. But just weekly themes and books help sell your culture a little more. Teach through the heart, prove you care. Teaching and coaching are really the same thing. I know we've been mixing them both all morning here, but really for me, teaching and coaching are the same thing. It's just volleyball is my favorite subject. And then compete to be your best through process orientation, and then spice it up by having some competition there. So this is a picture of our team at the World University Games in 2013 in Kazan, Russia. So the USOC asked the best Division III team in the country to go and represent the United States. It was pretty cool. So I have time for questions or anything you guys want to talk about, but thanks for listening. Hope you got a little bit of culture ideas for your programs.
All right, thank you very much, Coach. Good to see you.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm good. You?
Good to see you. Good, thanks.
Yeah, I like the beard.
Oh, yeah.
It's something different. Yeah.
No Shave November fundraiser, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me, but 365 days a year.
Yeah. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too.
All right.
How's everything?
Everything's going really well.
Oh, perfect. Good. It's good to hear.
Work here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm almost done here, so I hope. Do you practice anytime this week? I'd love to come down and see the team if that's, or whatever it is.
We're all remote right now, so
all right.
practice, so yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the spring's a lot better, and then I could drop by and see some.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to see you.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Sounds good. It was great seeing you.
Great seeing you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
All right.
Coach, do your core values change? Do you revisit them?
I haven't changed them in like 5 years, Steve. They really worked so far, so we're keeping them.
Now, when you talked about your son's travel ball team, were they in the process of developing those core values, and what did that look like?
No, I gave them to them the first day, and when they were off task, we'd have them posted all around. We'd have them in the dugout fence, and the right field fence, left field fence, so they could visit one really quick. Visit a list of the core values really quickly. And we would just say, hey, you got to go look at core value number 3. It's not going so well right now. We know if you do that, you're going to play better. So they would run over, look at it, come back. And 5 minutes later, I said, hey, what did you learn when you went over there? And they're like, well, I gotta be a little more positive with my body language. So it's better than saying these are I think it's better than having a class list of rules or policy or expectations. It's a better sell.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the process, and sometimes, in a gymnasium, we often might ask our classes to help create the list of core values as opposed to giving them. But I'm seeing, do you find that that's done in the Olympics too? Like they're given the core values, or do they do a process where the players are helping to create the list?
I've never seen it created like that. And it's really interesting you say that, because 2008, the core values were significantly different than 2016. And like the core values in 8 one of the core values was that players should hold each other accountable. So when you had a service error, I could go up to you and say, hey man, you got to serve the ball in the court. And that was a group that cycled through. So the 2016 was a whole nother team. Like that 2008 group were, it's the biggest. Players get old and they move on and then new players come up. But one guy was left over from that 2008 group, and he was animate about that being a core value, but the coaches didn't have it. And one of the core values of the 2016 team were players weren't allowed to coach each other. They were only allowed to support each other. And so that was really hard for that 2008 guy to handle. But I thought it was a great move. So I think if the players had a chance at that time, that 2008 guy, because he was so influential, could have convinced the younger guys, because the younger guys looked up to him, to change those core values, but I don't think it would have been as effective, because the personality and the psychological core, that makeup of that 2016 team wouldn't have been able to handle that accountability aspect as well as 2008 guys did. So I think the coach has to have a little bit of a more global perspective and insight and knowledge of the situation. So I think it's better from the coach, but I've never seen it from players, but it's not a bad idea either.
The spreadsheet that you shared with us, that you shared your screen talking about all the statistics and stuff, have you ever had cases where the number 3 guy starts over the 2 and the 1, and if so, how do you navigate that conversation when you have someone who probably the number 1 on paper should have played, but you started the number 3?
Yeah, so a couple of things to that, Matt. One is that we have every 2 weeks we have positional meetings. So those 5 outside hitters will meet with me every 2 weeks. We'll give them some things the position needs to do better, and then we'll give them the rank, who's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and why they're there, and what they need to do if they want to move up, or if they want to stay number 1. So I think that players appreciate the communication, and they appreciate knowing where they are and where they stand and what they need to do and what they're doing well and what they need to improve upon. And so we have had like a number 3 guy start. But for the reason that, one, they know why they're ranked where they are, because we've explained to them, so it hasn't been that much of a surprise. And 2, that chart is only objective evaluations. I mean, there's guys that do things that are hard to measure. Like they just are such good people. They're such good teammates. They compete so hard. They communicate so well. Maybe our team's a really quiet team that year, and we need that person's communication. That's not really measured on that chart there, how well you communicate. So he could be starting for those reasons. Those would be communicated in those positional meetings. And then, our guys are getting it. Oftentimes, Matt, it doesn't work out that way. Usually the top guys statistically are the guys that are doing the subjective things well. So, but if there is a situation where it's not matching up to the Cauldron results, as to who's starting, then it's explained to them, and I hope they understand it. I've had like in 23 years, like 2 or 3 guys come in my office and ask me why they're not starting. I think it's been pretty clear. The writing's on the wall. We try to be very transparent with that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Coach, you talked about how like you want your guys to run through the box at practice, like that's kind of your culture. And as a college coach, do you recruit for that, or is that something where you take the volleyball player you need and the culture will mold them to do that?
Yeah, we're definitely looking at their personality, because the personality will depict their typical responses in various situations. We're not giving a personality test or anything like that, but I'm definitely mindful of that as we're recruiting with them. It starts out with how well they're communicating on the phone. If they're really good at getting back with communication, like if they have to hand their application in, they say they're going to do it tomorrow, it happens tomorrow. I just spoke with a guy 2 nights ago. I said, hey, email this person in admissions and CC my email. He never did. So I'm learning about his personality a little bit there. We think there's 4 things we're recruiting before we're recruiting how good of a volleyball player you are. So those things are having to do with your personality. But we'll take a guy that might be lacking a little bit of personality if he's a phenomenal specimen athletically, kind of like the Patriots would take Randy Moss or something like that, and hope that the culture that person's in is going to influence them to change their behaviors to get them to play at their highest potential. But I think there's definitely a certain personality we're looking for, Jack. And we just love the Springfield College kid. It's easy to say on a Springfield College Zoom, but the Springfield College kid is our best case scenario. So.
So my question, I guess, would be, how are you as a coach handling like the whole COVID and everything like that? Like, how does that like affect your upcoming culture for this season if you do hopefully get one? How would that be like affecting your culture?
Yeah, so our fall training didn't change much at all, fortunately, in terms of the number of times we practiced. So the NCAA kind of gave us a little more leeway this fall due to the circumstances, which was nice. But I think that one thing is that we've been doing that mindfulness training. We've kind of been preparing our guys for this bombardment of negative thoughts and emotions that they're going to be handling because of the circumstances. And so we've been training them how to be present and evaluate those, and maybe not choose all the negative ones that we're thinking of with our actions next, but choose actions that kind of depict what we want to be as a person, our values as a person. But I would say the only other way, Emily, is that we didn't do as much competition in the fall this year because we were either in pods where we couldn't train as a team, so we couldn't play 6v6, or we were stopping and starting. Our guys weren't really there physically, so we didn't really put them under a lot of competitive anxiety. All across athletics, all of our athletes were experiencing more muscular stress and overuse injuries than ever before because of the fact that they really weren't in great shape, and mentally they weren't in great shape either. So it was really hard to ask them to go run through a box this fall when they're just we were just taking advantage of being in the gym and celebrating our time together. So it's a little different, maybe a little different environment this fall. But if we get to play in the spring, we'll have to get some consistent training in there, and we'll be able to amp up the competition a little bit. But just being a little more mindful, and we were less competitive this fall than ever before. The number of hours we had in the gym didn't change.
I've got 2 questions for you, Coach.
Yep.
First one. So you have worked with the group of 12-year-olds that you told us within Little League. You've worked with elite level adults. There's some developmental differences between those groups. And I was wondering if or how the developmental differences influence your approach with culture, with core values, with competition.
Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't, if I ever was a pro coach, I would really be excited about developing relationships, because I think that part of that, of developing your culture is the same at any level. So when you show someone you care about them and you have their back, you really get some amazing things out of that. So I always picture being like all those coaches that, like Brad Stevens, who coached the Celtics, who was at Butler, who's probably really comfortable, his family was probably in a good space, but offered this unbelievable amount of money to coach the Celtics. And then if it doesn't work, he could just go back to college and they'll still pay him. That's what I love about pro coaches in these big sport leagues. Like, you're gonna get fired, you do your best. If it doesn't work, you get fired, you still get paid for 3 years. So that's a no-brainer. But I would think if I had that opportunity like Brad Stevens did, the first thing I would be really psyched about was just getting to know the guys and building relationships. So, excuse me. I think developmentally, the differences is that part of that relationship building is that they have a lot, maybe in some instances, more experience than you do. So you'd have to do a little more listening, and there'd be a little less different feedback, or feedback frequency would be different. And that's what it is in the national team gym. I mean, you're walking around just kind of supporting them and tweaking them a little bit. You're not teaching them so much. You'd be amazed that at the elite level how fundamentals are lacking sometimes. You're like, you're one of the best players in the world, and that's how you pass? Wow. But you know, that's just more of a supportive approach towards it. Hey, if you just brought your arms down a little bit and serve receive, I think you see some amazing things. Look at this video when you passed to Aaron over there, your elbows got really high. And that's just more of a supportive approach. So as in terms of a younger approach, the difference with a younger participant is that it's just now we're talking about self-efficacy. We're talking about developmental things that are foundations that are happening in their lives. So it is a very similar and different approach at both those levels. So does that make sense?
Awesome, thank you. My second question, I want to give you an opportunity to plug something that's on your plate coming up soon, in the Coaching Youth Sport book that you're working on. Do you want to describe that project for us?
Yeah. So my sabbatical got deferred, but my publisher didn't defer the date. So I'm working on my youth sport book this fall. And it's going awesome. And it's just really, I don't think there's a lot of leadership in youth sport. And it's, wow, what a responsibility when a youth sport parent, a volunteer says, you can call me coach, that they take on that they don't realize. And just structuring the environment so it's a safe environment. It fills the needs of a variety of different participants. There's a chapter in the book called Coach Like a Teacher. So just having having a plan, first of all. Like, I don't see any youth sport coaches having a practice plan. And then transitions, talking with you're facing the sun, not the team facing the sun. Not having a 30-minute powwow in left field after a 4-hour Little League game when all the kids haven't had dinner and they're usually in bed by now. Just simple things like that gives a little structure to a youth sport coach. So I think it originally was called, for moms and dads, called Coach, a how-to, but the titles are varying a little bit right now. But it's just so if you're a youth sport coach, even these coaches who deem themselves as an elite level coach, like an elite premier soccer coach, would implement a structure that would get them a little more effective. And it starts with core values too. A structure that would be more effective for all the participants and for them to get the players to play at their potential and get a lot more out of the sport than just being a good player, but helping some life skills and some developmental things psychologically. That's a foundation for their success in life. So.
I can't wait to read it. Thank you.
Yeah. You want to proofread it? Just kidding. Steve's gonna do that. Yeah. What's Don? Don, you're in Florida. You're in Florida, Don. What? I mean, sounds like you have a lot of years' experience teaching. I was wondering what you thought about the information I presented today. Took a risk there.
All right. Anyone else have other questions for Coach Sullivan? Now's the time. All right. I thought those were some great questions that folks asked, Coach. Folks were clearly really engaged and interested in what you had. Coach Sullivan, any final words?
No, thanks for listening. It was a long talk.
Well, wonderful. Dr. Grosha, final words from you.
Yeah, one final thought. So how does your thought process work with your own self? In other words, how does this translate into your golf game,
Yeah.
etc.?
Yeah, it's perfect translation to my golf game. I always say I don't know anything about golf, but I know how to be confident and act like a golfer. I really don't know. I've never taken a golf lesson or anything like that. But I know how to aim for the flag. And I know how to be confident about hitting the flag. And if I watch the guys on TV, it says the image is the most powerful learning tool. And they're like picturesque, posing through every aspect of the swing. I just try to act like them a lot, which is really helpful. So image is really important. So if you have, it kind of just gives another idea to you. But if you have players in your program or students in your class that are acting out these core values and other people see it, that's why I've kind of implied a little bit in our program. It's kind of built into our program now. Our new guys come in and they see the way the other guys act. So this image as the most powerful learning tool is really important for carrying out our core values all the time. So my son's 12 years old. When he was 12, all his friends be in the backyard playing basketball, doing these step back crossover, dribble through your legs, step back 3-pointers and hitting them. But they've played basketball for 4 or 5 years. There's not been one coach that's ever taught them that move, but they've seen Steph Curry do it and Harden do it so much that that's how powerful that image is as a learning tool. So they'll go into practice and do some dribbling thing in the circle for 10 minutes. I feel like going like, you don't have to do that. They watch Steph Curry's dribbling videos 8 times a day. Like, you should stop doing this right now. But that's in the book. So, but so it carries out a lot, carries out everything. Yeah, it transitions or translates a lot into performance things as well, but also in my house too. I would say I'm a lot better as a coach than I am as a father, but I'm always working to improve my fathering skills to match my coaching skills.
Yeah, that was one something that I definitely took away today was how this can translate into my home, and working with a stepson, working with my daughter, working with my wife, working with myself, working with a dog. It's completely,
nice
transferable.
That's one of our best core values in our house. It's nice gets nice. So if you're nice to someone, you're going to get a nice response. If you're not nice to someone, you're going to get a different response. So it's one of our favorite core values. Was that nice? Was that core value number 3? So
again, I'll go back to my question. When you created your core values for your house, was it input from everyone involved, or was it mom and dad driven to the kids?
Yeah, maybe you're pointing out a weakness here. It was mom and dad driven. So maybe it's got to change a little bit. I've never seen it the other way around. It's just an interesting idea that you say that.
I had another question. The book that you are writing, when can I anticipate that coming out? I thought it was great because I was the coach that before last spring when I took Coach Long's coaching class, I didn't really have like a full-on practice plan. I had like ideas of what to do, but like I never knew really how to structure it. And then after her class, I like started coming up with practice plans every day. Like I have one for every day of the season, how to do, each week defense, this, that. So I'm kind of interested into like reading your book or if you have any other recommendations for reading as well.
Yeah. So I think probably next fall is realistic for the book, maybe in the spring, but probably next fall. It'll be on my Coach Charlie's CoachCharlieSullivan.com is my website. It'll be up there when it's out. So, yeah, so that's my hope. It gives a structure for any coach at the youth level, no matter their experience or a lot of years of experience or not a lot of years of experience. But Carl McGowan has a good book out that is similar in terms of he was a physical education teacher, was a national team coach for our volleyball team one time, but he has a motor development knowledge-based approach to coaching. That's I thought was really insightful. Let me just look forward here. Hold on. Get that. Look.
Yeah, I'm always looking for new like things to read to help improve not only my coaching but how like help my kids, because like at a high school level, especially at my level, it's JV, so it's all developmental for them, and like especially I get a lot of freshmen, so and it's soccer, so they're nervous coming into the high school to begin with, so it's like a lot of physical development for soccer, but also like social and emotional because they're going into the high school as well. So I always like to look for new readings.
Yeah, it's cool. Oh, you know what? I recommend. I just saw this. Coach Your Brains Out is a great podcast, and these two volleyball guys started talking to everyone, not only in volleyball field but in leadership field and I don't know, mindfulness field. But Coach Your Brains Out is a great podcast, and they put their first 100 podcasts into a book, and there's stuff on culture, there's stuff on deliberate goals, there's a wealth of information there for you. So I would start with that, Emily. I like podcasts a little more because it's a little easier. I can do something else and learn instead of just having to read and try to focus on one thing and fall asleep or lose my ADHD consent. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Coach Sullivan. I completely loved it. I'm sure our audience did too. Just to let people know, with your information, I will be sending out some professional development certificates. So expect those. Yeah, this concludes our Fridays with Springfield Professional Development Series. If there was any that you missed, please just reach out to us. We have videotaped them all except for one we're piecing together. And I believe that was the third one. So be on the lookout. We'll maybe revisit this, hopefully not, but we might have to revisit this format in the spring. And thank you again for everyone for attending. Coach Sullivan again.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you, Springfield people.
Bye now.